So let's begin with, where a lot of people, particularly within your party, well, not a lot, but some in your party, would like for this conversation to begin with, which is, the issue that have sort of met your defection to the party and your emergence as the flag bearer, which for a while was being contested. Where does that stand today?
It's been sorted out. We're good to go. We're looking forward to the elections. We're focused on our campaign, which is both covert and will become very overt this month. But more than anything, politics is a contact sport. Politics is a game of interest. So there'll always be somebody that will feel slighted on anybody's emergence, right? But we've ironed all of that out. So yeah, we're good to go.
Great. And as far as your campaign, as far as your campaign goes, what have you been up to? Where do you stand now? Okay,
so this is the first thing to understand. And we're putting a petition out on this today, tomorrow. There's a lot of intimidation of Labour Party members, a lot of intimidation and attacks on Labour Party, open supporters of Labour Party. So a lot of things that we've had to do have to be have to be covert. Because you tend to find that when people are proudly Labour Party, their businesses become, targets. You have a woman leader in Ikorodu that was assaulted. You have the flag boys that were also assaulted, So there's lots of meetings that are not being broadcasted and the press is not being called for it because we don't want to put any of these other people in harm's way. But what you're going to see in the next couple of weeks is a more overt.
So when you say you're going to be petitioning, there will be a petition. Who are you writing the letter to and who is it against?
To the government of the state and to the Commissioner of Police and to the APC.
Right. So you're accusing the APC in Lagos State here of being behind the assaults on some of the members?
Certainly, because they are all arms of that party, right? For instance, the assault that happened in Oshodi Solo, right, had the Lagos Parks Union chairman at the heart of it. The one that happened in Ikorodu, similar story, right? So it's not something that is hidden. And we're saying that they need to be called to order by the governor and by the Commissioner of Police. Because the Lagos State that we represent, the Lagos State that, we are proud of, or we ought to be proud of, is a state that is welcoming, is a state that is about live and let live, a state that is, all about just, express yourself. If it wasn't that way, the APC will never have become what it became.
So, Mr. Rhodes-Vivour, I'd like us to go into your history in just a moment, but it would be remiss of me to not talk about what seems like the culture of Labour Party supporters online, right? Because you're talking about some of the harassment that your members and supporters have faced here in the States, so physically.
Yes.
And I don't mean to take away from the seriousness behind that, right? Yeah. But there are people who would also talk about the behavior of Labour Party supporters online and say that essentially there's a similar trajectory, but in that case, they're the ones who are, if you like, in quote, harassing other people. I don't know if you'd want to respond to that.
Yes. I'll beg to differ because I know how the APC was in 2015. I know how the APC was in 2019. Sometimes these are just conversations, right? And I think that people are taken aback because you have a lot of young people that are very angry with the situation in the country. But these are words, right? You can always block people. You can't really block a punch. You can't really block tires being put on you and people want to set you on fire, right? There's freedom of speech, but there isn't really freedom of punching people and hurting people, right? Or even, look at what happened in Kaduna. A woman leader was killed, There's a line, and I don't think we should even bring those things close together in any way, shape, or form.
And so let's bring it back to the real message and the spirit of your campaign, because you are you're running, to govern a state that has, historically been run by, one party, even though they've taken on different forms at different points in our democracy. What for you, has led you to decide to take on this massive responsibility? Lagos State has Africa's 5th largest economy, right? So you will be taking on a very huge task. What informed this decision?
So when we say Lagos State has Africa's 5th largest economy, it's also based on our population. And our population is made up of very, very innovative, very hardworking people. A huge amount of those people. And unfortunately, those people have been forced to live a life of mediocrity. Lagos State has been run as a tokenist state, right? And you find that for the last 10 years, Lagos State has been ranked as one of the worst livable cities in the world. And this is coming from a place where by 1966, Lagos was ranked as one of the best cities to live in the world, right? It was amongst the greats, the Londons, the New York. It was on that type of list, right? So why do I want to run? I'm running because if you cannot continue complaining about something, especially when you have the skill set and you know you can solve these problems, and refuse to get involved because one party has been in charge for a long time. Even though, if you really think about it, there's been a lot of rigging, a lot of voter suppression, a lot of voter intimidation, and less than 16% of the total registered voters actually come out to vote. Of that 16%, you have about 9% that vote for the ruling party. So you really have about 84% of people that are registered to vote that are sitting down in their houses. And the conversation is about what type of Lagos do they want? Do they want this 4-hour traffic Lagos that they have to deal with? Do they want this bad road? I mean, I was saying, like, day before yesterday, Gbadebo Road, the road is so bad. A trailer literally just it didn't fall over, but it literally took over the entire road because all its tires came out. And I was thinking, I think that was on a Sunday, the kind of traffic that would have been on that road on a Monday, right? And this is the life that people are having to deal with. I jokingly said in an interview that, do you know how many homes have been broken because of traffic? How many families, how many relationships have been destroyed because of traffic, right? So Lagos can be so much more. Lagos can actually be the commercial capital of Africa, but currently it ranks 19th on the ease of doing business list, right? So back to your question, why am I running? I'm running because I want Lagos to be restored to the city of excellence in all facets, from the quality of our roads to the connectivity of our state to the ease of doing business to actually being the commercial center of Nigeria and Africa, and to restore that feeling of live and let live, that welcoming feeling that is indigenous to the indigenes of Lagos State, to that culture that allowed for it's to actually become commercial capital of the world, of Nigeria.
We'll take a moment here. For you who's listening, if you're just joining us, you're listening to the Newsmaker segment here on Now Breakfast on Radio Now 95.3 FM. Our guest in the studio is the Labour Party gubernatorial candidate for Lagos State, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, and he's speaking to us about his plans for you if you are able to, in the majority, elect him as governor come 2023. You can dial us up 0913 5000 953. Again, 0913 5000 953. You can also send us a WhatsApp message to the line 0809 682 2595. We've got a phone call that's coming through in just a moment. Right. So in the meantime, Mr. Rhodes-Vivour, I do want to talk about, so every time politics comes up in Nigeria, right, a lot of Nigerians want to find out what you've done before.
Yes.
And you also have a family name that's known here in Lagos.
Yes.
So I'm wondering how you see the family name weighing in terms of your past achievements and how your past achievements will come to bear or have come to bear in your campaign. We'll take it in a moment. We've got Elvis on the line. Hi, okay. Elvis. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Welcome. Please go ahead.
Please, if I'm directing this question to the candidate of the Labour Party. If you are elected now as the governor of Lagos State, looking at the housing situation in Lagos State at the moment, we don't have enough housing. Even though we have some houses in hybrid area like Ikoyi that people buy and rent, and they are not living in it. And you have another area like Mushi, Hajegule, and Yaba that we don't have enough housing. So what are you going to do in the area of housing? And another thing again, this area boys collecting money on the road, each bus stop. What is your own plan for administration going to do for Lagosians in this regard? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elvis.
I'm an architect by profession. I graduated from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and I'm very passionate about housing. I say that to say I'm very passionate about housing. We have about a 2 million housing deficit in Lagos State. That deficit cannot be solved by just the government, but we are going to create policy to allow for real estate to actually be able to run seamlessly from the titles that we give, not just to the indigents that have been on land for over 100 years, and making that process as transparent and as easily accessible as possible. To also now giving out micro titles. So you live in a flat. Do you have a title to that flat? So that these things can allow for real estate transactions to be able to be enabled. And so by doing that, then you can now create a situation where more projects can be done. But the answer to this accommodation question is also tied to transportation and linking the city. Currently, the city is very centralized in terms of planning. Everybody is coming towards Lagos Central. The idea now is to decentralize it and open up the Ikorodu axis and Badagry axis. And part of our vision for Lagos State is delivering 4 rails in 4 years. Right, that's about a total of 160 kilometers.
That's quite ambitious.
It isn't really, because the Lagos-Ibadan rail is about 175 kilometers, and it was done for about between 800 million and 1.2 billion dollars. Now you have a situation where the Blue Line, 16 kilometers, has taken 23 years. Right, so there is something clearly wrong. And for us, if in the same country you can do that, it is doable, right? And it's even less. And Lagos State is extremely feasible to have railway transportation, right, and mass transit. And that's something that has really stifled our development. Now, in achieving this, we can now start to have a lot of private wealth go into developing buildings outside of the Lagos Central, which is what he alluded to. And we are also going to do a lot of affordable housing, but it's based affordable. When I use that word, I always think affordable to who. So a better qualification of what I'm saying is multi-income housing.
Right.
Yes. So we're going to do a lot of that by creating a social housing fund that literally cross-finances. So, for instance, all the projects that are being done in Lagos Central, where the state is generating lots of funds from this luxury real estate, those funds are going to be channeled into social housing funds, right? And then transparency and accountability, which is what you talked about earlier on, they'll be given out in a very transparent lottery system, right? So people enter the lottery, you win, you get access to that building. You cannot resell it to the private sector. It remains under the ownership of the government to give to people that need it, right? And there'll be proper checks done to ensure that, like I said,
why a lottery system? Why not a needs-based system?
Well, there are many people that need it. Like I said, we have a 2 million housing deficit, right? So anybody that's entering it needs it, but we cannot build 2 million houses in 4 years. So it has to be done transparently and given out in terms of the lottery. So that's the first one. And then the second question, he asked about the Gbadebo situation.
Yes.
So you have a situation where a lot of young people are state-backed to pretty much just run riot in the state. That's the best way to describe it. I think the epitome of it was when BRT buses came with so many young men with machetes to harass peaceful protesters in front of the government house, right? I don't think there's any better picture that can be painted. And you have a lot of people that are consistently being harassed. So the answer to that question is, first of all, as a government, we are going to do the work, so we don't need any of these young men to harass and suppress people. because really that's what their use is. And then in the 3 years to the elections, they maintain them, they oil that structure. But the main use for them is during elections. We don't need that anymore because we're going to do the work and expect that the citizens will either put us back in or remove us if they're not happy with what we're doing. And then we're going to work with them in local governments as stakeholders to put policy in place to give them employability skills. So, for instance, if in a particular local government, right, for instance, let's take Ikorodu Ekpe, the aquaculture industry must be, the value chain must be significantly lengthened, right? We'll be creating incentives for businesses to invest in that and getting these young men and giving them the skills to participate in that industry. So that's the kind of program that I'll be doing to get them and create an alternative means for them to earn a living.
So, listening to you speak about infrastructural development and even this part, right, essentially upsetting the existing system that oppresses elections in the state, right? It's clear that will take a lot. Now, just to track you back to the infrastructural development, the reason why in Nigeria it tends to be ambitious is that you're not just talking about the funds, but you're talking about, political will aside, you're also talking about the quality of the skilled labor that would actually make sure that this project goes from point A to point Z, which is being finished, right?
Yes.
And I'm wondering if standing on the outside, it doesn't just seem a bit easy to you, because a lot of politicians who end up overturning whoever the previous administration was get into office and they discover that, well, it wasn't all uhuru and it wasn't as easy as they said it would be.
Yes, and that's why I used the example of the Lagos-Ibadan rail. You see, I didn't talk about Lagos, a train like going on in Kenya or in Ethiopia. I'm using the standards, even though they're quite mediocre, but the standards that are already set in Nigeria, right? So if it can be done Lagos-Ibadan, we can do it in Lagos as well. And the routes of all these things have already been planned out. I'm not coming to say that we're going to create a whole new route for this train system. The train system routes that has been planned by the government is a decent system. It runs in circles. Everything is coming to Marina. Generally, that's how you plan a rail network. Now, the question is implementing it and not waiting for another 23 years to do another third line, right? We need to have rapid project implementation because the state has been too stifled for too long.
0913-5000-953 or leave us a text on WhatsApp 0809-682-2595. You want to be, you're hoping that your government will be a lot transparent.
No, we will make it transparent.
You will make it transparent when you come into office. I want you to speak on that in terms of how transparent you think the finances of Lagos State can be and what your administration wants to achieve with that.
Yeah, so by making public all our contract awards, line-by-line items of government, our expenses and everything, you can now set a standard where people can check and see how government is spending funds. Because Lagos State generates all this money from the people that is taxing. It's not an oil-producing state per se. So there must be a social contract between the people and the government, right? And in achieving this, you can now set a 20% profit margin on any procurement, on any contract that's being given out. And then we can now manage our resources, much better. Currently, Lagos State is operating at times 3 times 4, the actual cost of getting things done. So when you see a flyover or a ramp, you could have had 3 of those, right? When you see a bridge, you could have had 3 of those. So we need to benchmark any project that we are doing to World Bank benchmarks, to other states, other cities, other countries that are in similar situations like we have, and try and deliver the best deal to Lagosians as possible. And that should be our pride. That, listen, this is a World Bank benchmark for this per kilometer. We actually were able to deliver this lower than that.
So you have a call coming through. Let's take that.
Sonny is calling in from Ebutemeta. Good morning, Sonny. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning, my governor.
Hello, Sonny. Sonny, are you there? Okay, go ahead.
What I'm saying is, based on what the last caller said about area boys, I want to comment on that. Area boys and tout, they are the one controlling this Lagos state as we are now. They harass everybody, virtually everybody. They go to the market. I'm trading at the Dimota. Go to the Dimota and see the half of these people are causing there. Nobody can buy and go out without even carton. There's correct more than 1,000. Every point you pass through that carton, they collect more than 1,000. What about the transporters? They harass everybody. You don't do anything in Lagos without this area boys harassing you. What, my governor, what are you going to do about this area boys? I want you to speak scary about this menace that is putting Lagos country.
Yes. And, it even goes down to the bus drivers. Bus drivers that you would have thought were in on the whole system, they are complaining now terribly because Lagos State has turned to a situation where monkey they walk, baboon they chop. That is the standard, right? And it's literally run like a mafia establishment. Just shakedowns everywhere in the markets, like it's talked about, with transporters and all of that. So, like I said, we're going to have zero tolerance for this behavior in Lagos State. They are empowered and they are state-backed because of their value in elections. Now, we're taking that completely off the table. So, we are no longer going to tolerate the collection of funds in a way that cannot be accountable. Because, all these monies, 120 billion every year from cars and vehicles, we don't even know how much your lodgers are getting.
there's going to be a blowback. I'm sure you know.
There must be.
Because corruption fights back.
Yes.
Do you anticipate at what scale the blowback would be, and do you have a plan for what your response will be?
Yes. So, for instance, I said we're not just going to cast people aside. We're going to build policy with them. We'll call them. There'll be a sit down. There's a new sheriff in town.
Right.
These are the plans that we have. What input do you have into them? And these are the things we're planning to do. But this easy money of just collecting and harassing people is no longer going to fly.
So, Mr. Rhodes-Vivour, we've essentially got like a minute to the end of this segment, and I do need to throw the politics question into the conversation. Okay. Earlier, you alluded to the presence of one presence that has determined the outcome of elections in Lagos for some time now, and you are running against the incumbent.
Yes.
What chances do you think you stand of overthrowing him?
I think we stand a very significant chance. I believe we're from next government in Lagos State, and I say this because the people that actually determine or should be guardians of democracy, which is the middle class, not in terms of money that they make, but in terms of exposure, education, and people that are willing to vote without your 500 and 1,000, they have decided to get involved, and they are going to come out and vote, and they are fed up and tired of the status quo, right? And that tilt is leaning to Labour Party, is leaning to integrity, is leaning to a lack of corruption, and is leaning to being able to hold that leader accountable, and a leader that will serve the interests of the people, not one godfather is cronies and
well, there you have it. Our newsmaker today, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. He is the Labour Party governorship candidate for Lagos State, and he's just shared with us his plans if he's elected governor of Lagos State. If people want to continue to engage with you, how can they do that?
You can do that on Twitter, JRV Lagos, on Facebook, JRV Lagos, and on Instagram, JRV Lagos.
All right, there you have it. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, our guest this morning. Thank you very much for stopping by the studio this morning, and hopefully we'll continue to engage with you going forward into the elections.
Definitely.
All right, stay with us. Nabila Usman will bring you the news at 8 a.m. Good morning.